So now I'm going to hand you over to Will, who'll be running the session. He's going to introduce us to the LGD missions. What are the LGD missions, Will?
What are the LGG missions? I can't even say it. It's been a very long day. So about a year ago, we were thinking LocalGov Drupal's doing loads of really good work. But it was, I don't know, scattergun's probably the best word. We were doing lots of good work around the piece, but there wasn't sort of like an overarching theme or themes. So when new work came in, we thought, well, why are we doing this or are we not doing it? What are our priorities? So I don't think we had missions at the start. I think we called them something else. There's a Drupal phrase that somebody will remember.
Strategic
Strategic,
initiatives.
yeah. So we decided we didn't, or maybe I decided we didn't like that word. Maybe some of us decided. What can we call them instead? And we thought, well, actually, missions, the M word is very fashionable at the moment. Maybe we're all sick of it. But that's basically what we're doing. We're setting ourselves an objective. We have a rough idea of when it's done. We can crack on and we will do those things. So that's basically what missions are. I'll tell you what they all are for this year. And that's what this session's about. And we'd like it to be an interactive session. If you want to shout out, clap your hands, jump up and down, like during. Otherwise, you're going to be listening to me largely, talking at you. Please do, if you've got questions, shout out. I'd like also to introduce a few other people who are going to be joining us. So I think Maria Young, who's the accessibility lead for LocalGov Drupal, may or may not join us. I'm not sure if she's on the call. She wasn't feeling well this afternoon. But we are joined by Finn Lewis, who's technical lead from, where are you in New York at the moment, Finn?
I am in New York at the moment. Yes, in Brooklyn.
Transatlantic.
Strangely sunny.
And I think Tim, who you just met, is our comms lead, and he'll be talking about one of the missions because he's had a lot of work there. But without further ado, before we get started, obviously, some of this is a question of money, sadly. We don't have infinite people and time. So we do need to sort of think about what we can afford and therefore what we should focus on. So this is the only pie chart in the whole deck. You'll be very glad to know. So in 2023, we received, thanks to councils and suppliers and our supporting partner Netcore, we received about 239,000 in revenue over that year, over that calendar year. And you'll see from the pie, the big sort of teal color is basically what we spent on dev and tech or product development. So what we spent on the product. And other things with some money to the tax man and to do comms and community and hosting and other things. So I think we run a pretty efficient ship. As we get more money in, the kind of dev tech percentage goes up as a whole of the whole pie, because there's a limited amount we need to spend on the other things. They're almost like fixed costs. So we're all heading in the right direction. So the point I'm trying to make is it's about 165k last year. So it's a decent amount, but it's not loads. So how do you make the most out of that? How do you get the most value out of that? So we basically said, I think for this calendar year, we're going to focus on 5 things. So we're going to major on 3 things. So editor experience is basically the experience that content designers have, how easy is the product to use and all that sort of thing. I'll go through these in a bit more detail. Accessibility, you'll know what that is. Microsites is our spin-off super product that allows you to make as many sites as you like for different things. We're also going to do something about contributions, because that's the essence of this community, really. We want everyone to feel part of it and chip in, whether that's code or content or whatever that might be, or to come into meetings like this one. So thanks for coming. Also, because we were doing a lot with Netcore, we wanted to do deep integration work. There was a meeting, a LocalGov Drupal week thing earlier with Netcore, so you can watch that recording shortly. Done loads of good work with them. I won't go through any of that in this session. So let's just go through each of those missions. So the editor experience one, which is largely the one I've been sort of product leading on, it's about providing content publishing that's powerful, flexible, it's easy as possible. And we've got some way to go. There's things we love about LocalGov Drupal. There's some things that we don't love as much. But we've done a lot in the last sort of 6 months, or maybe more. We've done lots and lots of quality of life improvements, loads and loads of little things. So taking out Drupalisms, because there's a lot, reducing clicks, making it just easier to understand what the product is doing. We obviously did service contact, so you can assign colleagues in services to particular pages. We added the gin theme, which we didn't build, but we added it because it's a nicer, clearer experience. We added a few modules, things like Masquerade, where you can, when you're testing, you can act as another user to see what their view is and how they use the product. We added preview link for multiple pages, which was a massive bugbear for people. So if you're sending a link to a guide, you can send one link rather than multiple links, or to a directory. There's a few things that we still want to do. This list has largely come from a request to me, we'll have a look at this, and LocalGov camp earlier in the year, where we did a couple of in-depth sessions. A content designers who turned up said, we need this done, we need that done. So there's maybe 2 or 3 more things that we need to do, but it's nothing major. So I'd say this one is coming to a close now. Accessibility is our second mission, and Maria was going to talk about this, but I'll do my best. Finn, if you want to chip in, or Tim, please do. So this is about obviously being compliant, but also about baking accessibility into the work. So as new pull requests emerge, new features emerge, how do we get accessibility into the work rather than doing it at a later date? So quite a few achievements here. So there's now a proper community drop-in for accessibility every month. We are, I'm just going to have to move the toolbar out of the way. We are doing an audit now, AA, WCAG 2.2, and we fixed lots of issues already with LocalGov Drupal, so that's great. We've got to do the same auditing for Microsites, and Maria has started that already, and there'll be more issues coming out of that. And we're going to launch an accessibility governance group. So what's the brains trust that thinks about how we do this well? So if you're interested in any of these issues, please do drop us a line, come along. There's a group in Slack called Accessibility, so please join that. Next one is you, Finn.
Ooh, the super product. I haven't heard it being called that before.
Well, it is.
But yeah, no, Microsites, I think everyone's familiar with Microsites as the follow-up distribution to LocalGov Drupal, allowing one Drupal site to manage many microsites on different domains with different look and feel, different content, different users, but keeping all of that within one system so you can control and maintain and manage it going forward. That was a big mission this year to get to a stable release, which is one of the achievements. We did launch a stable release, make a stable release in September, just before DrupalCon Barcelona, which is good. Lots of work involved in that, which I won't go into, but a lot of it just making sure that we had good test coverage and that the permissions, keeping content and users, on separate sites is obviously part of it and very important, potentially from a data security perspective as well. We now have at least 33 microsites live that we can count and know of, but there seem to be more popping up all the time. So if you have any more, do let us know. And that's, I think, it's a massive achievement. It's great to see everyone using that and feeding back to the microsites project. But yeah, there's more we'd like to do. So like coming soon, hopefully some things by the end of the year, but looking ahead to continue next year. We'll talk a bit more about kind of like ongoing missions for next year. But some things you may already know about: live preview, something that Mark Conroy has built out and has demoed a couple of times. We'll have a little bit look in the deeper depth of that on Wednesday at my session at 4 about next year. Mercury Editor. Actually, live preview, that's, for those who don't know, allows you to see what's going on with the look and feel of the fonts and the colors and the spacing and the sizing and all of the look and feel, but within the front end of the browser. So you're not sort of saving it and flipping and saving it. You can really see what's going on and check the all important accessibility implications of that. Mercury Editor, again, improving the editor experience for editing content, where you've got different layout sections and having that presented in the front end. So again, you'll see much more of the real changes that you're making in real time and making it just quicker and easier for content editors. Hopefully those two things we can get in by the end of the year, and they'll count as the 2024 microsites mission. But then looking ahead, I think more flexible permissions for each microsite. So being able to give different roles, different permissions for different things. That's something that seems to come up quite a lot. And the groups and group sites modules that we rely on have improvements that we can leverage to help with that and make it much more fine-grained for microsites administrators. What do we call them? Controllers, to manage and assign permissions, so that we can really, reduce the permissions or enhance the permissions for different editors or different microsites. And yeah, other continuing improvements, especially around the user experience, and bringing things in from LocalGov Drupal as we continue to develop new things. So yeah, it's a brief overview of that. Mentioned the session on Wednesday at 4 p.m. So this is my session looking forward to 2025. I might try and rope some other people in as well, because there's lots of great things that came out of DrupalCon Barcelona, lots of exciting things happening in Drupal in 2025 and ahead, and sort of looking to see how we can bring those into LocalGov Drupal in general and microsites specifically. We'll be looking briefly about the AI direction that Drupal is going. Look a bit about hosting, and there's something else that I can't remember now. But check out the event on Luma. It's got some a detailed summary of what we'll be talking about then.
Thanks, Finn. It's I can't make that, but I'm going to watch it back when we record it. So the next mission was around contributions. I think, Tim, you're going to talk about.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about this. Should say thanks to Aaron, because he's the one that's doing all the work on this, but sadly he can't be here, so I'm stepping in for him. But thanks to Aaron for all his work on it. So obviously with this project, we want to try and increase code and other contributions from our community. I think we're doing okay on that, but we probably could do a little bit better. I think the achievements for this year, we've increased participation in community meetups. Aaron's worked quite hard to bring some people in to do lots of like little show and tells, and also some interesting talks for people. I think the one around the environment and carbon footprints of websites, for example, was really well received. So they were great. And also contributions this week, part of LGD week and LocalGov Drupal Camp, another good example of where people have made loads of great contributions. Should give a mention to Big Blue Door, who sponsored Mark this over the past few months. Mark's done a phenomenal amount of work with that. So thank you to those guys for that. And, maybe there's potential for others to do the same. I guess speak to Simon from Big Blue Door, who's on the call, if you're interested in knowing more how that's worked. Or Mark, who's also on the call, I think, as well. And we've also seen an increase in subscribers and supporting partners. So obviously it's not just code contributions. Those financial contributions are super, super important as well.
Tim.
So a couple of things that we're going to be doing later this year and early next year. Firstly, it's increasing, introducing a new subscriptions model for suppliers. So we've had some feedback that people would like to be a little bit more incentivized to make contributions, code contributions in particular. So we're going to be trying to sort of reflect what Drupal.org are doing to encourage kind of greater supplier participation. So we want to move to like a hybrid model. So obviously we want to keep subscription fees because we need that for certain things, but we'd like to introduce a system where people can contribute code or other things and get accredited for that. So we'll move to more of like a certified suppliers model, and we'll be we're releasing more information about exactly how that's going to work over the next couple of months. And linked to that, we also want to move over to Drupal.org because a few of our suppliers have said, actually, it'll be easier for us to contribute if we're picking up the contribution points, if you like, from Drupal.org. So that's in the pipeline as well. Finn, I don't know if you want to expand on the Drupal.
I think Mark, I heard Mark's voice there for a second. I think maybe Mark had a comment or a question around the Big Blue Door
Just
sponsorship?
if you don't mind, just for 1 second, Tim. Yeah, just I think that question is kind of badly phrased. Would others like to do the same? It looks like do other people want to also sponsor Mark Conroy? So I'm not here looking for more sponsorship. I'm perfectly happy with where I am, but it's for would other people also like to sponsor other developers or other initiatives?
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mark.
It's a really good point. Yeah, well done.
We'll max you
I
out,
guess
Mark.
just very briefly, other like achievements in the contributions. I think we have seen a growth in the variety and diversity of people coming to various of the tech meetings and getting involved in various pull requests that happen in between that as well. So I don't actually have any figures, but just anecdotally, there's definitely more people coming with more merge requests and asking more questions, and developers from new councils coming to tech drop in quite a lot more and then feeding back stuff. So I think it's definitely growing the contribution space already. And but yeah, all of this looking ahead to next year is very exciting, especially moving to Drupal.org increasingly and being able to leverage the contribution credits there.
I think
Credits,
also
that was the point. That was the word I was looking for, not points. Contribution credits. Thank you. Yes.
it's another Drupalism. I think also the content group that I've gone to a few times, although Aaron sort of facilitates it, the sessions I've gone to have been really lively and lots of people always coming, lots of returning people and new folks coming. So thank you all if you attend those, because I think you're our users ultimately. So what your needs are is basically what we're here for. So coming along and sharing your experiences is probably the biggest part of this. So thank you for that. Let's move on though. So contributions are going well. Outside of those funded things, the things funded by the roadmap, there is other stuff going on. There's a lot of other stuff going on. Sometimes it's actually quite hard to keep track. So we've had community originated or community funded features of lots of different kinds. So versions 2 and 3 were funded by Cumberland. The work was done by Rahalian, but contributed to by a lot of people, including folks on this call. So thank you if you played a part in that. I think we got from 2 to 3 in about 2 months or less, 6 weeks. And the elections was used in the last general election, which we were really pleased about. Content access by path, which is basically sort of devolved publishing, originated in Essex. So it was sort of in conversations between Mark Conroy and I, how we're going to get the best result here. So there's lots of sort of kicking around how that could work. So thanks, Mark and Essex, for your support. Publications we talked about a lot, but it's a sort of ongoing piece of work funded by Hammersmith and Fulham and delivered by Chicken. I think some of the Chickens are on the call, Rupert and Justine, so thank you. Media entity usage, I can't remember who did this. Should know. Sorry. If you're on the call, please shout. Like how this was it? Was it one of your long list of things that you did, Mark?
Yeah.
So basically, this came out of LocalGov Drupal camp. It's like we don't know where media is used on our sites, and we really need to see that. And actually, I think it turned out to be quite a straightforward fix, but it's now in the product. So again, people shouting out what they need, like delivers results. Subsite extras was another thing. So making subsites more flexible to have a menu and whatever pages you want underneath it was obviously, something we never thought about when LocalGov Drupal started, but great piece of work by Hammersmith and Fulham again that we were able to roll out to everybody. And for that work was funded by Essex as well. So thank you if you're from Essex. So loads of stuff happened that we didn't expect. And we quite expect this to happen again next year. There'll be needs that you have, great pull requests, that kind of thing. We're looking forward to seeing what happens. We're going to be talking more about how do we max out our capability. So there's another event that I'm running with a few folks here on Thursday if you want to come along. So we're talking about community fund, which you've probably heard about, what's on the wish list. We don't necessarily have money for it, but we do want to do it. And how we make the most of everybody's time. How do we get dev sponsored and all of that kind of thing. So please come along, because it's about dreaming bigger. The more we put into this, the more we will all get out. So please do come along to that. I think at that point we've talked a lot. That's what we've done this year. It's loads. But have we missed something, or have we not focused in the right place, or we hit the mark for you? What do you all think?
It might be worth just I was shouting out Simon's point there about Mark's work and the fact that Mark has free reign to channel the direction of the work sponsored by Big Blue Door in whatever direction he feels fit, which is important to note. And yeah, the Mark's then liaise with technical group, product group, and looking at what the priorities are, and yeah, but lots of great work and on existing work and new things too. So that is good to note. Thanks, Simon.
It's been great all round. Great all round. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts? No? So you can give us a mark out of 10. This is hostage to fortune. So on the mission performance this year, 10 is great. 1 is obviously we didn't lift off at all. We just stuck on the pad. So give us a mark out of 10 and we'll continue. I don't want to look actually.
Simon's already put 10. He put 10 down before you'd even finished the question.
All right, fine. Thank you. So let's move on. What's next? How do we follow up on the great work that's been done so far? So I think this is a proposal, so this is not decided. So this is what we're putting to you for the first time as valued members of this community. So we think actually quite a lot of it doesn't need to change. We're actually on the right track. So and if you disagree with any of this, please do shout out. This is a conversation. It's not this is not a given. So we think that accessibility in microsites, we probably need to keep going. So accessibility is something that's never really done. Well, none of this work is really done. Finn and I were having a sort of theoretical conversation about this earlier. There's no end to this work. We can rule things in or out of scope, but accessibility we need to keep going with, at least for the foreseeable future. So we think we're going to do that. We think we're going to keep going with microsites. There's more to do. And if you want to find out more of that, go to Finn's session on Wednesday. We'll obviously continue with contributions because it's a big part of it. I think we're scratching the surface. And if Netcall sort of renews its partnership, we'll continue going with Netcall. We'll see. We're having conversations with them now. So the area we want to change is basically the editor stuff, which I think we've probably got to the end of. It was sort of quick wins. What can we fix quickly and to help you out? And I think we've largely done that work. So what I'm proposing instead is we dig a bit deeper. So there's bits of LocalGov Drupal that actually are quite old. So if you think back in our history, 2017, 18, things like service landing pages were built in Brighton and they haven't fundamentally changed in that time. So how many years is that? 7 years? It's quite a long time. So we think that there's older stuff like that that really does need a fresh look. The world has moved on in that time. So we'll basically, if we go ahead with this and it's, do give us your feedback, we'll basically be taking some of the older parts of the site and you can suggest what they are too. We'll be asking the following questions. So are you as a group of councils using them in the way they were originally designed? So I was around for the design for the fundamental bits of this. So it'll be whatever I remember at the time and whatever people think about it in the research that we had at the time. So we'll be looking at that and saying, okay, what were we trying to achieve? We'll be looking at the modifications that we know a lot of councils have made with the older stuff. So how have you changed it? We're really interested to hear. Is there any consensus there around how you've changed these things? We'll be thinking about what new needs have occurred in that time, since this thing was built the first time. And what's the missing evidence? What's the missing data that we really need to understand this problem better now in 2025? So it's a bit of a deeper dive. It'll be fewer, bigger projects, we think, to really get under the surface of some of the older stuff and understand how you use it and make it better for you. And the candidates I'm thinking off the top of my head are service landing pages. We did that a few weeks ago. I'll show you some of that in a second. Paragraph components are kind of okay, but they need a sort of brush up. And we need to think about where paragraph components are used around the site because we actually use them very sparingly. Is that right? We don't know. Events is being reworked already. It's the sort of big finders project where we're kind of just upgrading it and adding channels and all that kind of stuff. So that work's happening already. We think there's something about it's kind of, I guess, the number of clicks it takes to add or link a document or an image. It in parts, LocalGov Drupal is quite demanding on people. And we think it could be, well, at least we could look at it and see if there's anything we can do about that in a more fundamental way. So that's what we're looking at for next year. It'll be about a third of the work that we do. So the other two-thirds are largely accessibility in microsites with some other things around the edges, around contributions. So it'll be a reasonable chunk of effort that's going into this. Let me just talk a bit more about the service landing pages thing we did a couple of weeks ago. So this, for people that come to the content group, I think that's where this refresh work starts. So we will basically say, let's have a think about the older stuff or the things that we don't really like about LocalGov Drupal, and work out what those distinct areas are, and have a session or two on each one. So we ran something on service landing pages a few weeks ago, where I explained where this thing had come from. So this was very early days in Brighton, sort of 2016, 17, what we were trying to achieve. And we looked at lots of council examples in that session about how it was being used now and the modifications that were made. And we came up with a kind of the start of a list of the things that we would change. So it's presentational, linking to external sites, like fundamental things that service landing pages should really have done, way back when, but for whatever reason they didn't. So it's, if we progress this, we'll basically be looking at these in a bit more detail and saying, are these the changes that we want to make, and how do we help councils easily move across to the sort of new world that we're talking about? If there's anything major, there'll always be an upgrade path. It won't be a difficult thing. There won't be sort of lifting and cutting and pasting content or anything like that. We'll always make it easier for you to do the things that you need to do. So yeah, so that's the kind of thing that we want to do, sort of deeper look at some of the more fundamental things that we do. Before we go on, is there any questions about any of that? No? Does it make sense? Okay. What we don't want to do is rule out some of the other conversations that are happening, but bear in mind we have a limited budget, so we just need to be sort of careful about how we spend our money and not spread ourselves too thinly. So there was a great intranet session earlier that Tim and Craig and Suchi from Essex ran. So we'll be looking at that and sort of assessing people's interest, what's needed to make an intranet. We're using LocalGov Drupal. But we think we think the projects I'm about to sort of talk about are probably community fund projects. So they're not funded right now. We do need to find funding from councils or suppliers or in kind or whatever that might be. We do still want to do them, but they're not core to the work that we're doing. So we think there's something about intranet. We think there's something about search. So maybe using solar search, which quite a few councils are starting to explore. In fact, some of the councils on this call. So in that work, what's been done by those councils? Are there any common things that they've done that we could use to offer to everyone? AI tools and hosting, they're things that Finn knows a lot more about than I do. He's going to be talking about on Wednesday. But in the AI tools sort of arena, what's coming down from Drupal that we ought to be mindful of that we could potentially use? And then hosting, we all spend a lot of money on hosting. Are there ways that we can help you with that? Are there ways that suppliers can band together? Is there a common kind of hosting platform that people can offer? We don't know yet. Could we switch more to open source hosting, and save the planet and so on? So there are lots of things that we could look at, on that score. Do you want to say anything about any of those, Finn?
Well, the latter two was just points of discussion in the session on Wednesday. So maybe come there, we can talk about those things. There was something else, I can't remember what it is. I need to go and have a look. But yeah, mainly just feeding back from lots of great stuff that I've sort of come across at DrupalCon Barcelona, and looking at how we might be inspired by that and look to collaborate on different areas. No, nothing firm, just ideas for discussion, really.
Yeah.
Just one thing from a wider community perspective, and we got asked about this the other week. We normally do like a roadmap survey of councils to see what their roadmap is for the year, and we'll definitely run that again sometime in November or early December to see what everyone's working on. And if there's some points of conversion there, we'll we'll definitely be working on it. Sorry, you can hear my daughter telling off a cat in the background, I think. So I'll mute myself again.
Yeah, yeah, we do. If 2 or 3 councils are working on a thing, it makes sense for us to help you with that thing. So we'll be looking for that sort of stuff. So look out for the survey when it arrives. We're interested in your ideas. Well, what are we not doing? You know, what could we build? What does Drupal already have we could just use? Who could we partner with to get you better integrations? That sort of stuff. So yeah, let us know. And that is enough talking from us. So hopefully that sort of gives you a bit of a view of where we're going and what interests us and hopefully what will serve you. So thoughts are very welcome. Over to you, Tim.
Does anyone have any questions? There was a comment about information architecture in the chat, which I think Finn responded to. Finn, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so there was a comment from Simon. Totally new to Drupal, but can we visualize the site information architecture yet? Or should I take my WordPress hat off? Well, I can't comment about the WordPress hat, but yeah, the information architecture in LocalGov Drupal sites is an interesting one, but it's quite large in most councils. And so my question back was actually, who's that for? Is that for internal users or public facing? Because there's always things like sitemaps. But you know, as it gets bigger and bigger, like how useful is that to the end user? I don't know the answer to that question. There are lots of modules that we can build on, and there's probably libraries that we can build on. But one of the things we did early in the an early architectural decision around the services landing page, sub landing page, and pages was not to use the menu system, because on a massive information architecture, certainly Drupal 7 days and early Drupal 8 days, that caused various performance issues potentially when saving and general performance of pages and large hierarchies. So I think we could totally build something out that took into account our IA decisions around service pages, which may be being challenged, as Will was just saying, maybe something we need to review anyway, but also incorporating subsites, events, directories. You know, there's thousands of pages on a big council site. And so to visualize all of that in a meaningful and useful way, I think that in itself is an interesting question and challenge, and just work out who it's for and how to give them what they need.
This came up in a chat on Slack the other day. I think somebody said, is there a Drupal sitemap module or tree module that you can download? And we had a good chat about it, but I think the consensus was these sort of sites are more like a spider's web. They're sort of tree-like, but they're not wholly tree-like. So if you have, it's because citizens basically call things different by different names. So if you've got, trying to think of a good example. If there's any content designers on the call, they'll be going, it's the shout out. So you could get to recycling through a few different ways. So you might go through waste, you might go through environment, you might go through other places. So content can live in different places in an IA. So it's not a perfect sort of tree structure. So it's like, how do you represent that? And like Finn says, who is it for? You know, how would you use something like that? But up for a chat.
A couple of comments suggesting it's maybe more useful for content designers to do like content audits and review all the services content directory stuff, and be able to see that. There was definitely ways to. Sorry, go on.
There was a conversation around it. This came up at LocalGov Drupal Camp. What links here? Because that's actually quite difficult to see in LocalGov Drupal at the moment. So I've got this entity or a page or whatever it might be, but I don't know what links to it, and I don't know what those things link to, and I don't know the journey through this thing. It's not very clear to see. So to Caroline's point, yeah, absolutely. I think we need to do better in that regard. I interrupted you, Finn, sorry.
I can't remember what I was going to say, but it suddenly strikes me as that, again, a little bit of AI intelligence there to help content designers figure out what links where very quickly, or just little widgets that we can write to embed. And we do a bit of that on the service landing page and sub landing page already. Like if there's any pages that are in this service it lets you know so that you can add links to them from this page. So that's, you know, a small amount in that direction. But there's another question here from Anna. Have you any idea of the number of new councils that are interested and why?
I think it's
As in,
74.
is that as in interested in LocalGov Drupal?
I mean, as in, if the question is interested in LocalGov Drupal, the answer is there's about another 50, roughly, give or take, that we know are interested. And obviously we're waiting for some of those to drop because they're in existing contracts. Some of them are putting their business case to their senior leadership teams. So it's around 50. And I guess they're interested for a variety of reasons. Yeah, probably the same reasons that you've come over, Anna.
Yeah, probably. I just wanted to check that there's still a flow coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a really healthy number. And you know, we went to LocalGov Drupal camp last month or month before, and you know, there was 4 or 5 councils there who were, well, you know, you were there. You were having the conversation. I think it was Solihull, who've emailed us this week actually to say that they've got sign off, so they'll be joining us soon. Oh, I've just sort of scooped ourselves, haven't I, and announced a new council. There we go. Solihull will be Solihull at 51. They'll be joining soon. So yeah, so it's good. Like it's definitely keeps going. I think Microsites is going to be important for that as well because we'll be able to, now we've got a stable release, we'll be able to promote that a bit more fully to those who are sort of on the periphery, and it gives them a good opportunity to try out not only, you know, the technical side of it, but also it gives them an into the community, and then they can really see like the benefit of what we're about.
I think maybe the other reason is that it's very difficult for an individual council to take on these size challenges now. Like we've done the basics, but you know everything we bite off from this point on is actually quite big, and you know with good reason. You know there's lots of things we want to do, and having strength in numbers helps us do that. And there aren't really any communities out there that do this. You know, certainly in web publishing anyway. So you know it's sort of people are I think are drawn to this because we're taking on the big stuff, and you know we want code. We genuinely want co-design. We want to do it with councils. We want people who are interested and want to get stuck in. So you know, long may that continue.
Simon's responded in the comments as well. He says they're working on 4 sites at the moment, and most are moving away from legacy systems that aren't fit for purpose.
With an amazing wedding site. We're supposed to link to that in the chat. It was brilliant.
Just another note on that. There's still a large number of councils who we're not talking to right yet, and our potentials. And so that's a big challenge, but one that I think will be interesting to explore in the coming year and years is how to reach people who haven't heard of LocalGov Drupal yet, who don't know about Drupal or the open source collaboration that's going on. So yeah, if anyone has any ideas or contacts at councils, you know, or ways of reaching councils that don't know, you know, short of having a large marketing budget, which may be something we want to look at in coming years if we want to grow into the unreachable parts. But if anyone's got any other ideas on that, it'd be good to discuss.
Yep. I think we might be there. We're at time.